All right. You all okay with starting with movement? And then we'll go to Q&A after we do our practice. Does that sound good for everyone? What I want to do today is go through some of the kind of common yoga poses that we would typically get in a regular yoga class, whether it's hatha or iyengar or power yoga or vinyasa yoga. There's, those sort of basic ones, such as the warrior one, warrior two, the various warriors and the triangle pose. We might get into tree pose or some common yoga balance poses. And so for those of you who are new, these Wednesdays, I try to align the theme of the Wednesday practice with whatever theme we're working on in this month. So this month, we've kind of been going over fascia anatomy, and we talked about proprioception and interoception and all of the ceptions in the last module. And then in this coming module, we're going to start getting into cueing. And what even is that? And how does that look from our approach? So what I was thinking for this practice, because we're going to go into balance work, but what I want to start with is to give you an example of how cueing looks if we were to do it inside out, whereas like a less directive cue from me to you and a more invitational cue where you get to figure out in your own body what's the right stance, how much range of motion is the right range for you. So I want to start with that so you can experience it, and then we'll dive into content later in the month on that. Okay, so this concept is called tensegral range. And the idea is we mindfully track our body and we look for a range of motion that allows us to feel, to like get into a felt sense of stability in the stance that we're in or the pose that we're getting into. So if you're brand new to this, how this works is just with a little bit of exploration in foot placement. So let's see, new people coming in. I just want to check everybody. Okay, there's nobody here super new to yoga. Let's do a little bit of warming up the body, and then we're going to explore ranges of motion. So do you have a favorite way of getting your body warmed up? Is there, I know we all have practices, so if you want some ideas, some good ones are just yawn. Ooh. Yawn and move. This is called pendiculation, by the way, when you yawn, and just tracking the movements that go with it. And I really want to invite you for this next maybe 2 minutes to do whatever it is you do that allows your body to get warmed up for those poses I mentioned, like the warriors, the triangles, any kind of wide leg stance. So if you're a sun salutation person, just play with that for a minute or two. If you want to just wiggle the hips a little bit, that tends to work really well too for warming up the legs and pelvis. And I also love to do these like free warm up because I get to also see what you do. I get to get a glimpse into what your practice is like. Some of you are twisting, some of you are sun salutationing, some of you are still yawning and stretching. So it's really helpful for me to see what is your way, warming up the body, arriving on your mat. I see a cat photobombing one of you. I always love that. Okay. So let's take a little bit of time to complete whatever it is you're doing for warming up and then arrive wherever you are on your mat. And even checking in with how you do that. What's your way of arriving here and now? It might be a shift from active mode to present mode. It might be like you shift gears a little bit. Or it might be something simple like aligning with the breath. Letting the breath bring you into your body. In whatever way is good. There's moments where being fully embodied doesn't feel right. And there's moments where being fully embodied is super juicy. So know that there's choice around that. You might find bringing your awareness just around your body is better. And now that we're mindful, what I want to do is go through this concept called tensegral range. And we'll really do it exploratorily. So if you were to get yourself ready to do a series of warriors, start by going kind of autopilot. So let's say if you're used to warrior 2, for example, go into what you typically do as far as a wide leg stance. And kind of just check, like, what's your automatic? And then what we're going to do is we're going to test it. So before you bend, just pause at this stage where you're in your wide leg stance, feet forward, and bring your arms out. This is like what do we call this? The starfish pose. And bring your arms out and feel into the level of security and stability in your stance. A really good way to test that is to maybe wobble or wiggle a little bit and see. If you were to imagine a great big huge gust of wind, those of you locally, we've had plenty of those lately. If a great big gust of wind blew behind you, do you feel that it would kind of knock you off your stance, or do you feel that you're pretty stable and you can kind of, you might move a little bit, but you feel, that wouldn't knock me over? Okay, you can rest your arms. And then explore. So take your feet even wider. And, don't hurt yourself, but just a touch wider and see, did anything change with regard to that degree of stability? Another great way is as an imagination test is to imagine someone's putting their hands on your shoulders and pushing down just a little bit to create some load. Does it feel like you would kind of push back against that load and get stronger and more stable? Or does it feel like that load would no, that's way too much? So it's just really good information. And then try closer together and you just go through those little inner tests. And the idea, it's sort of excruciatingly long process, but the idea is we're gonna kind of go in and out, in and out, in and out, testing until you find the degree of stance that really provides you a felt sense of stability and a sense of like secure in the pose. And again, like wiggling, imagining the wind or imagining an external load, whatever works for you to really get in touch with that. And people discover different things in starting this practice out that, oh, maybe I actually go quite a bit too far into my range, and it's not quite the right tensegral stance for me. Maybe I do need to back off a little bit. But then the next time you practice, you find that wider stance is better. And so it'll change. Each time you practice, it'll be a little bit different. So it's really valuable to check in each time you go to do a practice and see what's your tensegral range today. And then maybe come out of it just to wiggle and shake and jiggle a little bit. And I'm seeing how that is defined it again. And this time, let's go into like a rotated leg. So warrior 2 is the warrior where we're doing a side lunge. So the pelvis stays forward and then the foot rotates out to one side. I typically will cue this as pelvis faces the long edge of the mat, toes face the short edge of the mat. And with that in mind, we do want to recheck though, because this tensegral range idea is really big for this practice. So once you're in your side lunge shape, go through that little test again and see, like, if you got wiggly, if the wind blew, if someone externally loaded you. Does this feel like you're in the right stable, secure stance? So you're tracking for that felt sense of stability. And maybe track for where do the arms really help the whole body with that goal. If my intention here is I really want to get a felt sense of my body's a safe, secure place for me to be, where would my arms help with that? Just try a couple positions out. Awesome. Okay, let's do that to the other way. Coming into your side lunge, other side, and because each leg is a bit different, you may have to explore. Are you still in that tensegral? By the way, tensegrity is 2 words, tension and integrity. So whenever I say tensegrity, I'm meaning both those things. It's the degree I'm tensioning my body, but is that in integrity? Or am I tensioning too much and there's no longer integrity? Or am I tensioning not enough and there's no longer integrity? So can you find that just right amount of tensioning the system where there's a sense of integrity? So let's switch to the other side and see what changes if we go side lunge and then into a side bend. So we would typically call this the side angle pose. So you can have hand on the knee, you can have elbow on the knee. Some people do it hand on floor. But with this practice, because we're tracking for something really specific, we're tracking for felt sense of stability within the pose. So that might influence where you put your hand. So other hand can just, again, the upper arm is really a supportive, it's like, think of it as an accessory to the pose. If this arm could help me to achieve more integrity, where would it want to go to do that? And then let's do that one to the other side. And you're imagining that big gust of wind, or maybe someone just giving you a little nudge from behind to externally load it. It was so great when we used to do these beautiful workshops in person, we would actually partner up and do that. So you can imagine that we're doing that. We would partner up and somebody would just give you a teeny bit of a nudge, really gently. And what we were tracking for is what's the tensegral range where I feel it's a felt sense of springing back into that load, rather than that load making me feel like, whoa, no, or that's too much. It's that idea of the external load makes you feel stronger. Okay. And then let's do the exalted warrior next. So for this one, we come into that side lunge, but then we side bend the other way. So if you're side lunging right, what we do is we slide down the left leg. And then again, this is your accessory arm. So this arm is just helping with that felt sense of integrity. And you may need to shift a little bit to reconnect with that felt sense of stability here. Where's the just right amount of bend, the just right stance. I'm going to shift to the other side. As we're going through these little setup poses here, I'm going to take it into a flow in a moment, but really this is important to take a little bit of time to get this felt sense of where your stance is right, and then the degree to which you're coming into the lunge. So how much lunge is a good amount of lunge? Hi. How's that? Is there any questions on that, or has everybody found? Give me a thumbs up. Did you find your tensegral range? Was it cool? Isn't that amazing? Like, to me, it's so amazing. Just a little bit of integrity in the body makes this huge, huge, huge difference. And I mean like structural integrity. Okay, let's take this into a flow. And what we'll do is we'll just go in and out of all of those three in a sequence. And maybe before we go into taking the legs, let's do a little mindfulness with the arms first, just so you can get a sense of how we're going to flow. So arms up and arms down is all we're going to start with. And what we want to do is synchronize breath and movement in whatever way works for you. You can check that out in your own body. I typically will cue this inhaling up and exhaling down, but I know we're all experienced yogis here, so I really want to invite you to check out what's the way that feels right and good in your body. Do you like inhale up and exhale down? Or does it feel better to go exhale up and inhale down? What's the right, just right way to flow? You might want to try it, arms out to the sides and down, and just see what changes there. And is there a way to get really precise with the timing? Can you synchronize the exact amount of time it takes for one breath cycle to match one movement? Can I sync up the amount of time it takes me to inhale is the exact same amount of time it's taking me to loop my arms up? Slowing down that down movement to time with my exhale. And then let's take this into a flow where we'll go back to that wide leg stance. Maybe quickly retest. Does it still feel right and good? And then we'll go into our warrior sequence, and let's do this one as a flow. So just feel into that. Maybe each time you bend a bit is when you're exhaling. And then each time you lengthen a bit, maybe is as you're inhaling. But is there a way to, and you might need to play with it a bit, but is there a way to synchronize breath and movement? So the amount of time that you're in one pose is probably going to be one breath, either one inhale or one exhale. And you might need to slow it down. So you might end up wanting to be in a pose for 2 breaths. Now that that's allowed. You might need to shift or change the tensegral range as you go. Maybe it gets a bit wider. And you can, before we switch sides, let's do a little bit of rebound. Just to really get a little bit of a bounce going. So we can do alternating leg lift, or like just the little shimmy movement. So alternating knee bends, and or imagining you're on a little trampoline and getting a little bit of just a really low degree oscillating. And then let's do this other side. So wide leg. Explore your tensegral range, find that just right way to stance yourself. And then we'll take it into a flow, and we're going to synchronize breath and movement. So we could exhale, just as an example, into our warrior 2. And then maybe we inhale, stretch the arm, exhale, side bend. Inhale, coming back to your warrior, really reach and lengthen, and then exhale, exalted warrior. And then I'll give you a bit of time to feel into your own breath flow and rhythm. Really get curious, what's best here? What's the best flow you could come up with the breath? Get creative with it. Feel free to wiggle and jiggle as needed. So you can stay in that longer if you want, or if you feel complete with both sides, it's coming back into your rebound. Just tell me. So I want to repeat what we did last week as far as a balance setup, where what we'll do is we'll weave it into a bit of functional movement. So let's stand just behind the mat to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into crane pose, which is basically looks like this. We're going to go into crane pose, but we're going to weave it in to a movement we're really familiar with, which will be walking or our gait cycle. So what we're going to do is put one foot on your mat and then the other foot forward. So like you're just going for a walk on your mat. Okay, and then back up again. So let's do it all synchronized just for ease. Let's go, right foot is going to go on the mat and then left foot is going to step ahead of the mat. And just really get a feel for that. Right foot's going to plant on the mat and then left foot ahead. Once that's comfortable, slow it down. So right foot on the mat, pause. Left foot ahead of the mat. Maybe lengthen your pause a bit. How is it to just, well, hang out there. It's like that game of freeze tag we used to play as kids, you're just going for a walk and then someone says freeze, right? As you are in this part of the gait. Or maybe that word is not the best one for you, so try pause or slow-mo. All right, when that feels comfortable, the next step is just transition it into a crane. The right foot comes on the mat, we pause, and then we lift the left leg up and we hold. Arms can be accessories again. Find that place where the arms support the pose. We're still going for felt sense of stability, which is a little trickier on one leg. Awesome. Get you all balancing so awesomely. Okay, come back and let's do it one more time. So going for a walk, right foot comes on the mat, left foot comes into crane, arms support. Remember to breathe. Okay, amazing. Let's do it on the other side. The left foot's gonna come on the mat. And it's always good to recheck. The integrity here would be kind of, where is my foot? And I'm really changing my relationship to gravity. So where do I want to place that foot that allows for the best kind of shift in my center of gravity, where I can hang out there? Where does that left foot feel just right? And then weave in the pause. So left foot steps forward, right foot goes to step forward, but then we just hang for a bit first. Let's do a slow-mo walk. And then when that feels comfortable enough, let's go into crane. So left foot will come onto the mat. We'll go to take the right foot, but we'll stop instead and bring the right foot up into crane, and arms are going to help us out. And because we talked a little bit last month on the workshop about the benefits of proprioception and how it can help with things like stress and pain reduction, let's do a little bit of this as an experiment. So before we go into the next stage of the balance, take a little bit of time to check in. So maybe what we could look for is, how comfortable do you feel in this moment? Really being with yourself, with your own direct, present moment, felt sense. How is that? How comfortable is it to turn inward and drop in? So 10 would be, I'm extremely comfortable being inside my skin. It's enjoyable, pleasant. I'm content and happy. 1 or 0 would be on the other side of that. I don't want to be with myself at all. I would much rather be distracted or just putting my mind elsewhere. So give yourself a number between 0 and 10, just via curiosity only. There's no wrong answer or right answer, just to check in. Because what we want to do is do a little bit of proprioception and then see what shifts with that number. So what we'll do is we'll go right foot on the mat, left foot into crane. And once we're in crane, and you might need to set yourself up. I just noticed I went straight into it, and I was a little more wobbly than when I really set myself up those first few laps. So feel free to go back through that again if you need to. Okay. Then what we're going to do, now this is an amazing proprioceptive training exercise, is we're going to draw with our foot. I'm just going to go capital A, capital B, capital C with my toes and see if you can cross the midline. So with your A, can you kind of sweep it across the other leg? Feel free to rest in between letters if you need. And then C. Okay. So notice if it's easier for you to look down at your foot, or can you just feel, can you visualize that letter and draw it without looking at your foot? So feel free to come, we'll do it one more time with that right foot on the mat and left foot drawing. So really set yourself up if you need, do those few little laps on your mat. Where's that sense of integrity in your foot placement? Can you draw your letters without looking? Closed eye is a little bit too much for some people, so don't worry about closing your eyes, but can you like look at an object on your wall as you draw? Okay. How did you find that? How did you know where to put your toes? Just kind of feel into that. So there's a very specific sensory experience to that, right? You had to sense where your foot was. You had to really feel where your foot was going in order to accomplish this tracing a letter objective. You're just going to notice that, track it as we do it on the other side. So we'll go left foot's going to come onto the mat, and then right foot will come off the mat. Feel free to take a little bit of time to just pause and then keep going. And then when you're ready, we'll do crane pose. So right foot's going to come up, left foot is going to be nice and stable, and then we'll find the good position for the arms, and then draw your capital A, capital B, and C. Now, if you don't like the alphabet, you can draw anything. Now, some of you have taken Reiki with me. Draw Reiki symbols with your foot. That long one from level 2, don't worry about that one. But, you know, you could draw the spirally one. You could just draw your favorite shape or symbol. You do like an infinity or a figure 8 pattern. Yeah. I really track what that's like. Like, how are you doing that? How are you finding that? How are you able to finger paint with your toes or toe painting? Okay. If that bothers your hips in any way, I know there's a few of you who recently had hip replacements, so you know, I trust you that you're tracking yourself, and you may need to bite-size this little adventure. All right. How do you feel about upping the challenge a little bit? Comfortable with that? So for upping the challenge, here's what I'll offer. As a menu, you have options. You can just do the exact same thing we just did with crane pose on your mat. Or you can do crane pose on your mat, placing the foot on a wobbly surface with your hand on a wall. Or you can try doing what we just did on a wobbly surface, and you know, if you're comfortable with, I might kind of fall out of it, and you feel like that's okay, I'll catch myself, then don't worry about the wall. But feel free to try it the first time with the wall just to see. I'll show you with the pillow. And I like to really do this setup because think of this as you're setting yourself up for success. You're giving your body an internal cue of something it's really used to, which is walking. And so have your pillow or your wobble board and do your go for a walk. So right foot onto the pillow, left foot is just going to step. I went to the gym last night so that I could play on the wobble board to see if I could do this on the wobble board. I could not, but I could do the walk across. I'm not at the level of being able to do the pause just yet. Let's see how it might be. How long can you pause? It can just be like a microsecond even, or a slow motion walk. Slow motion walk. So all you're doing is taking that foot up and over and down, just really slow. Sweet. Once you got the knack for the pause part, then we can go from that just right into crane. So stepping forward, left foot goes to do its step, but instead we lift up the knee and come into our crane, and arms are helping us out. A little bit trickier, hey, with that, with that bit of wobble. So here we're also engaging our vestibular system and the proprioceptive system at the same time, which I'll talk about later, but that's a really cool thing to do. So when you get that sense of the off balance and you right yourself, just notice how that mechanism happens inside. How does the process of that happen inside? And feel free to bite-size that, have one hand on the wall so that you can play a little bit safely with how is it to lose your balance and correct it, what goes on inside. So great. Feel free to switch legs. Okay, now let's do one more each side, and I'll just leave you to free play. Do your crane right, do your crane left in your own way, and really get into the toe painting exercise, okay? However, whatever you want to draw with your toe, get a picture in your mind. Maybe you want to draw a little butterfly or little cat ears. Maybe a mountain scene with a sunset. Just go with it. It's really fun to watch your toe painting, I have to say. I'm really wishing that we actually had paints and then we could like hold up our creation. But it's really fun to watch you. So holding that image in your mind and not looking at your foot, if you can. And can you get your toes to draw, keep it simple, draw that symbol that you're holding in your mind. All right. Just out of curiosity, let's recheck in with our scale of 1 to 10, just to see if anything's shifted. So doing a self-check. If we bring awareness inside, get curious, how is it? How comfortable is it to be with yourself in this moment? What's it like to bring awareness into your internal, I call it internal landscape, just the inside realm of you? How is that? I can definitely report. I feel like I went up a point. I thought it was pretty comfortable actually when I first checked in. I was like, "Oh, this is going pretty good," but it feels even better now. Anybody else notice a shift? Yeah, you awesome. And it's not wrong if you didn't, by the way. It's different every day. It's a process. What I love to do next is to go back to those warriors and have the lungy foot on our unstable surface. We'll go nice and slow with that. But it can be really fun to go into movements that we're somewhat familiar with these movements if we've done yoga for a while. The warriors aren't completely foreign shapes for our body to be in, but it will feel foreign when the foot is now no longer on solid ground. So it's a really good idea as we go, we'll just go, we won't do it as a flow, we'll just go through each of those 3 positions nice and slow and get set up into tensegral range, because that's going to make a huge difference for bringing in instability. If I'm already quite stable in my stance and I have a sense of, yeah, this is my most stable variation of warrior available to me in this moment, then if I keep this stance and just all I do is shift my foot onto the pillow, it's probably gonna feel a little bit better than if I'm kind of out of integrity to begin with. And then just hang out. So find where do the arms support you. Feel free to hold a wall if you try it and it's like way too much. Go into holding a wall. Here's a fun little check-in though. When your foot's no longer on a stable surface, does your integrity change? Like, do you now need to readjust your tensegral stance to kind of factor in my foot's on this unstable object? I was trying this yesterday on a Bosu ball. It was actually quite fun. Highly recommend if you have a Bosu. So switching it to the other side. Finding that good tensegral stance. Feel free to hold walls. But it changes it up quite a bit. Hey, if that foot is no longer stable on the front, what do you need to do inside in order to readjust and find that felt sense of stability again? So for example, as I track that in myself, if I sort of lose the stability of the front foot, because we're self-adapting, what I notice is once I lose the stability there, I feel a deepening of my deep core activation. So the body kind of goes, oh, we We need to recruit something. Hi, Jen. No worries. I love to see you. Okay. How is that, by the way? Is it a little bit harder? Is it too hard? Is it just right level of challenge? The ideal would be this is just right level of challenge. I'll open the chat so I can see all. For those of you who have one of these guys, you could also do that with your foot on your wobble board. Nice to see you too. I'm glad you made it. And then you can explore as well those other two warrior versions, coming into the extended warrior, or the side angle it's sometimes called. And again, now that that front foot isn't as stable as it was when it was on the ground, what changes, what reorganizes on the inside of you? What do you track? Do you need to change your range? Like, do you need to kind of tighten in more? Is there a way to kind of maintain that felt sense of secure, the sense of I'm really secure in this stance, I'm really stable where I am? You could even play again with that idea of the external loading. So let's go through all three of those warrior versions with the foot on something unstable. So we got our side angle. Regular warrior. And then the exalted warrior is the one where we go down the opposite leg as what's lunging. And don't worry about doing it as a flow, really just to kind of, go at your own pace and really to explore how it is to be in those three shapes. Doing your best to really maintain that integrity. And tracking for what reorganizes, what shifts and changes inside as you take away that stability in the front foot. I'm going to pull out a different pillow just to kind of demo that there's lots of options of a smaller pillow, sort of smaller thin pillow. Feel free to try a couple different items. How are your legs doing? You getting tired of it? You might be a little bit sore tomorrow. It's the different way of engaging the musculature when we get into wobbly type things. So just bite size as needed. Yeah, and totally go back to standing on one foot too. Let's see how we're doing for time. Oh wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Heavens. If you've explored all of those 3 positions on each side with your unstable surface, let's do a bit more of that rebounding. It's a really great way to reset on a nervous system level and let the arms shimmy. And then, because we're all, I would say this is kind of almost like an intermediate class, because we all have an established practice. And some of you are gearing up to become yoga teachers by the end of the year. So what I want to show you is a couple different ways to do a couple different variations, depending on the population you're working with. So if you're a teacher and you're wondering, like, how would I teach this to beginners? One really great way is to do this laying on your back. And I believe we did this one last month, I think, but it's a really good one. So laying on your back, and then you can take your unstable item and put it under one foot. And even just this is going to stimulate, like I'm going to almost automatically be wanting to track my 2 feet. My nervous system's always getting a sense of where is my body in space. So having that little bit of difference between the 2 feet, I'm already getting into that mode, nervous system wise. And here you could close your eyes too to really get deeper into your internal tracking and really notice what it's like to have one foot more hovery and the other foot more stable. And then switch. So you're going to put the other foot stable, the other foot floaty, and see what happens. You can also explore both feet on the floor, both feet on the stable. And then both feet on your unstable together and just see what shifts and changes. And I always like for you to have lots of options. So as we get to the next stage here, I want to, just give you a moment to check in and see what would be the right version for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the toe painting with one foot, and the other foot's going to be either on the ground or on your pillow. So you can try it both ways and just see, because you're going to get the benefit. If you visualize a shape and then you make your foot do it, that is going to be proprioceptive. So you'll get the benefit. But if you add in a little bit of instability, at the same time, it just ups the challenge level a little bit. So I'll invite you to try it both ways and see if you're drawing toe painting with one foot and then the other foot's a little bit floaty, your body's going to have to really track. It's going to have to work a little bit harder to know where you are in space. And that's the training. That's sort of what we're going for. But it's always good to have the just right degree of challenge for your body. And really like finding the just right degree of challenge is it sounds easy, but it's quite an exploration, truly. Okay, so let's go through that. I'll give you a couple minutes. Just decide on the shape you're going to draw with your toes. We'll do a rebounding in between again, but we'll do it just on your back. So when you feel complete with that, you can bring your feet to the ground, to solid ground, and then use your feet as levers to get your body into an up and down rebound, like head to toes. And then if you want to go one step further, and this would be probably the most challenging of the laying down sequence. So modify as needed. But what we're going to do is we're going to bridge. We're going to bridge with one foot on the pillow and one foot on the ground. And what we want to do with this one, this is a really amazing core exercise. What we want to do is, can we get the pelvis to lift up evenly, even though the feet are going to be very different? So if you're new to bridging, maybe start with both feet just to, to feel how it is to lift the pelvis evenly both sides. And then once you've kind of established that, put one foot on the pillow, one foot on solid ground, and then lifting the pelvis. And you might notice that difference side to side. Like the pelvis might want to translate one way or the other, and we're kind of inhibiting that, going for a smooth, even lift on both sides. And place the other foot on the pillow and try the other way. And then I'll give you a minute to just do anything that would be good to whatever your body is asking for. If you were to tune in right now and just ask your body, what will be good? Maybe a laying down twist, or maybe just hugging the knees and rocking side to side, or maybe a yawn stretch. Give yourself permission to go through a full minute or two and really check in. Let your body move or stretch or do a pose, whatever it's calling for. And I want to lead you through just a few minutes of meditation. We won't do a super long one today, but I want to invite you to do that in whatever posture is really going to be the most nourishing for you. You might do that relaxation pose we tend to do at the end of yoga, laying flat on your back or laying on your back with pillows under your knees, or legs up the wall. Anything that would be restful and nourishing, or even just a sense of it. Can you, with movement, invite your body to rest just for a few minutes? So I'm going to sit so that it'll be easiest for me to see you. And you're welcome to sit too, but feel free to stay laying down this whole time. But before we get too much into a meditative state, let's get curious and do one more time that scale of 0 to 10 and check in now. So how is it in this moment to be with yourself? If you were to start drawing awareness inside your body, how comfortable does that feel to all of you? Is it a little more comfortable to do that now than when we started? There's no wrong answers. This is purely exploratory, just going in and checking it out. Not really the whole point of these types of movement practices, mindfulness, movement, or yoga, or Tai Chi, or whatever type of mindful movement we're doing, is this particular practice of getting curious about our direct present moment experience without judgment around it. It's really the key benefit of these mindful practices. Is there a way to get even more curious about what's happening right now? And then just noticing what would be a good way to meet that experience. What's the best way for you right now to really be with whatever's coming up all on its own? You might notice, just because we've had such a deeply somatic practice today, see if you can distinguish. It's a really subtle nuance, but the subtle difference between thinking about your body as a concept, and really being with your body as a lived, felt experience. Very subtle. might even want to imagine that you're meeting your body for the very first time. Oh, hello. This is the body. This is what it's like to abide in an alive, living, complex system. I'm just going to ask you a question before we close and just getting curious about what comes up all on its own. What is something that's true for you about your connection with your body? What is something that's true for you about your connection with your body? And again, this is an exploration, no wrong answers. It's really getting curious what bubbles up as you inquire into that, and feel free to ask yourself a few more times. What else is true for you about your connection with your body? I'd love to save a little bit of time to do some Q&A. So give yourself a minute to just go inside and see what would be good. What would be a good way to complete this practice? Might be a movement. It might even be an intention to come back to it in a couple days. Whatever would feel right and good to close up for today. You can slowly make your way back to the camera. Welcome back. My cat is snoring so loudly over there. I was just curious if you can hear him. Okay. Very entertaining. So anything to report, first of all, before we get into discussion? Anything you're any burning questions on that practice. You can type in the chat or you can unmute.